Okay, let's kick off. Thank you again. Thank you everybody for joining us. Today we have a pleasure to have Laura and Sergio to share with us insight regarding hydrogen and their pros and cons. So let's introduce ourselves and the Argentina-Texas Chamber of Commerce, and then we are going to kick off the webinar. As you know, or probably you know, is the Argentina-Texas Chamber of Commerce is an independent, non-profit, voluntary membership association. Our goal is to promote investment, trade, education, and networking opportunities between Texas and Argentina. Now let's talk about Laura and Sergio. Laura is partner and director of GME, Energy Development and Sustainability Area, with more than 25 years of experience in power and natural gas market in emerging economies. She has a vast experience leading market-related studies in Latin America, the Caribbean, and Africa. More recently, she focused on aspects related to energy transition, energy efficiency, renewables, and the development of low-carbon hydrogen road. She's a chemical engineer and holds a master's degree in international and development economics from Yale University. Sergio Kapusta is the director of the Rice Energy and Environment Initiative at Rice University. He worked at Shell in all areas of the oil and gas business and served as the chief scientist of the Royal Dutch Shell Group of companies. He holds a PhD in chemical engineering and MBA from Rice University, where he currently teaches in the engineering and business school. We want to say thanks to all our corporate members, Pan American Energy, Gold member, Duralay, Globan, and PCR, Silver members, AESA, Marval, O'Farrell, Marial, Mayor Brown, Practia, Proshale, and Co-Advance that are bronze members. Just a clarification before starting the webinar. The idea is pretty simple. Laura and Sergio are going to present. After the presentation, we are going to have a Q&A section. In order to be ready for that Q&A section, we invite you to write question in the chat, or if you can, in the Q&A section in Zoom. So when we start the question and answer section, we are going to review the question there, and I am going to make the question to Sergio and Laura. We invite you to write as many questions you have, because the idea of the webinar is to enrich the conversation and get additional insight from Laura and Sergio. Having said that, thank you, Laura and Sergio, for being here, for preparing this presentation and share your knowledge with the entire audience. Well, the stage is yours. Go ahead. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, Ariel, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, and thank you for the organizers, people that have helped. There are several, and I'm not going to mention one by one, but it's an honor for me to be invited to give a webinar for the Chamber of Commerce, particularly about a topic that I like very much, which is energy in general, and in particular the forms of energy that will take that will be more popular when we decarbonize the world. And in this case, it will be hydrogen. Let me see. I suspect that you can see the background of my picture. So in the background is the beautiful campus of Rice University, except that was in the spring. In the summer, all the azaleas are gone and all the grass is kind of yellow, because we've had a very, very hot summer. I've been in Houston on and off for about 40 years, and I don't remember having so many days of very hot temperatures. Is that part of the climate change? Maybe. I think we will tell if the trend continues. And speaking of trend, that's what we are trying to discuss today, is the role of hydrogen, whether it's a trend or a hype, meaning is this continuation or not? And we divided this with Laura, and I decided to go first with the concept of age before beauty. So I represent the age, and Laura will represent the beauty. Okay, so let me put this in presentation mode. There you go. Okay, so in particular, I want to talk about green hydrogen. And green hydrogen right now is called, well, many things, but essentially it's electrolytic hydrogen coming from electrolysis of water. And why? Why do we need electrolytic hydrogen, and where and at what price? Now, is hydrogen a fuel, or is hydrogen a storage option, or is it something else? And just briefly mention sustainable aviation fuels, and I hope that I can provide you a few messages to take home. One of the messages that I have is this chart at the bottom right, and it's the chart of the sustainability goals of the United Nations. You will see that many of those goals, even the ones that are not specifically energy related, they're all energy related, meaning good health, quality education, gender equality, and all that. They all need energy, lots of energy, in order to be realized. So in essence, the global goals, the global sustainability goals of the United Nations are one way or another energy related. And so that is my introduction to the topic. The first thing is hydrogen is not a fuel. So we call it one of the fuels as a replacement for fossil fuels, but it is not. Hydrogen is a way to transport electricity and maybe to store electricity, but it's not necessarily a fuel. It's more a chemical compound, and it's good for chemicals. As vector to transport electricity and to store electricity is not very efficient. There are many other methods which are much more efficient, and I'm talking about chemical engineering, thermodynamic physics efficiency. Of course, there are other reasons to store energy in hydrogen, which are not related to how efficient it is. And well, I will leave that to each one to decide. I'm just talking the generalities. So where is hydrogen today? How much hydrogen is used in the world? Well, the demand for hydrogen, it's a plot here on the bottom left, on the bottom right, and it has continued to increase over the past 15 years, more or less. It has grown by more than 300%, and that is driven mostly by two factors. One is the need for fertilizers, as more people need more food. Hydrogen is the way to produce ammonia, and ammonia is the basis for many of the fertilizers. The other factor driving the growth in hydrogen is the use in refining. And in refining, it's used to clean fuels, essentially to eliminate unwanted elements like sulfur and nitrogen. And as the need for gasoline has grown, so has the need for hydrogen. So over the past year, there has been a large increase. The latest figure that I have was for 2021, and that is 83 million tons per year that are being used. And approximately of that, 80% is, well, it's about mixed half and half between refining and ammonia, or chemicals in general. There are very few or no applications for transportation, for example, or for other things like decarbonizing other industries. Okay. So most of this hydrogen today is what I would say is 95% or more, is produced by methane steam reforming. And that is what I will call the black, I think somebody calls it the brown hydrogen. So it's pretty dirty because it produces large amounts of CO2, and that CO2 is not being captured or redirected, it's just vented to the atmosphere. What that causes is that hydrogen production is very greenhouse gas intensive, in particular CO2. If you can capture the CO2 that comes from steam methane reforming, Then you will have maybe blue hydrogen, which, well, if you capture all the CO2, it will be pretty good hydrogen, no contamination, no greenhouse gases, no changes in climate. So here are the methods for producing hydrogen that we have today. The steam methane reforming, it's on the top. So you can see here that you produce about 5 times more by weight CO2 than hydrogen. On the bottom is just methane pyrolysis. It's not a very common way, but there are some companies like BASF in Germany and one of the Argentinian companies, I think it's esteemed, that is also looking into producing hydrogen by methane pyrolysis. And here is the one that everybody's talking about right now, which is electrolysis. Now, electrolysis, in principle, it sounds pretty good. So you use, well, we will talk about the thermodynamics of it in a second, but it's not a cheap method. It's a pretty expensive, and the reason is the electrolysis part is not cheap. First, you need electrolyzers. Second, you need clean water. And third, you need, well, you need to concentrate that hydrogen. You need to, the hydrogen that comes from the electrolysis, you need to pressurize it in order to move it. So essentially, the main problem with the electrolysis, and I'm jumping ahead to the next slide as well, is the efficiency of electrolyzing is about 70%. And this efficiency is not that something that you can, how to say, reduce it by investing more money. It's not something that you can reduce or, excuse me, increase the efficiency by making more. So with time, it will be better. This is more or less, it's a thermodynamic problem. There's a component of the hydrogen electrolysis, which is entropy. And the entropy is about 30% of the total. And you cannot really get rid of it, meaning you're going to continue losing that into the future as well. So what that means is that you will need, in theory, that is with 100% efficiency, you need 39 kilowatt hour of electricity to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen. In reality, you need 52.5. So you need 30% more, from 39 to 52.5. And this is the unfortunate, no, not this one, sorry. The unfortunate thing is that you don't recover the 52.5 that you put in. So when you make hydrogen, you need 52.5 kilowatt hours of electricity to make 1 kilogram of hydrogen. When you try to recover that, that is, you want to regenerate the electricity starting from hydrogen, you only get about 39 kilowatt hour, a little bit less than 39. So immediately you lose another 30% on the way back. So the round trip of producing hydrogen, storing it, and then using it for making electricity again, and it doesn't matter where you produce the electricity. You can produce it in a car, you can produce it in a power plant. The round trip will lose about 50 to 60% of the original energy that was in the electricity. Electricity is way high, it's very high quality of energy, and when you move it to hydrogen, you are degrading that energy. It's a normal process. Chemical engineering knows that very well. Every time that you make a transformation, you lose entropy, and that's where the missing energy goes. So as I said, 95% of the hydrogen is produced by unabated steam methane reforming. It is expected by some that the hydrogen demand will grow from where it is today, which was 87, 88 megatons per year, to 200 and some megatons per year in 2050. The question is that reasonable? Where is that demand coming from? Until the next 10 years, the low carbon hydrogen made by electrolysis or by capturing the CO2 will be used for decarbonizing the existing uses. They will be used to decarbonize the hydrogen for ammonia and the hydrogen for refining. And then there will be more demand for something else. But what is that something else? Because it is a market that doesn't exist. And making assumptions and predictions that it will grow by some 200 million tons per year in 20 years, it's a little bit kind of out of the normal range of predictions. So ammonia production, yes, it will increase. But on the other hand, refining needs, if all the fleet of combustion engine vehicles is replaced with electric vehicles, with battery operated vehicles, there will be much less need for refining, and therefore there will be free or homeless hydrogen out there trying to find a home. Well, we will talk a little bit because both ammonia and methanol are probably good targets for hydrogen, for electrolytic hydrogen, clean hydrogen. Now, is that good? Meaning, can we actually deliver? Well, the methanol today is also made by steam methane reforming, so on the basis of methane, and you could make it from hydrogen and CO2, but at what price? And what our price is so far, the roof or the ceiling is about $350 to $400 per ton of methanol, and that's the black methanol. If you add carbon capture to that, it will be maybe $500 per ton of methanol. But $500 per ton is, well, it's not even the price of hydrogen. So in addition to that, you need to put the CO2, react it, clean it, etc. So I don't see how a green methanol can compete with black methanol or brown methanol plus carbon capture. And of course, beware of the hype, the Gartner hype. Green hydrogen is everywhere. Every day or every week, we see more news about investment in green hydrogen. And I wonder, where is all that green hydrogen going to go? Just simply from the market perspective. Are the market going to pop up? And we are starting from nothing. And in 10 years, we will be in the million tons and the $1 billion market. All right. I'm less optimistic now. So first, what green hydrogen is not. And in many cases, it's promoted like a Swiss Army knife of chemicals. So it can be used for everything. It can be used for electricity, for transportation, for replacing other chemical processes. But there are other low-cost options. And yeah, hydrogen would be a Swiss Army knife, but you can see this Swiss Army knife that tries to be everything to everybody. And it's not very practical. I don't think anybody's making and selling this type of machine. What hydrogen is not, it is not a low-cost option right now. $5 per kilogram is what somebody mentioned earlier. And well, maybe that is the starting point. Can it be lower? These are things to be decided. It's not lower yet. It's not an efficient energy storage option. As I said, if you store it to produce more electricity later on, you have lost about 60% of the original energy in that conversion. And there are other methods for storing energy which are much more efficient than hydrogen. It is not really a convenient automotive fuel. It is called that you can refuel in minutes, and it has very large range. You can drive forever. Those things are to be proven because right now there are no large fleet of hydrogen vehicles, and you don't know when the refueling goes into the public whether it's going to be safe, fast, and all that. And the competition is not standing still. Battery electric vehicles are also improving and very rapidly. So who's going to win that race? It is not an aviation fuel. No matter how you want to put it, hydrogen has a very low volumetric energy density, and therefore you need to compress it. And compressing and storing hydrogen at high pressure in an aircraft, it takes a lot of weight, and therefore you are losing the battle between how much hydrogen you have to store and the weight of the aircraft that needs to carry all that. CO2 e-fuel, so artificial fuels or synthetic fuels. Yeah, I saw some commercials where Porsche has shown, yes, we can do it. In fact, in southern Chile, they have a little advertising. The Porsche car has been refueled with synthetic fuel made from CO2 and hydrogen. I think that hydrogen was bottled in because the plant was not operating, and it's still not operating, and it was just for commercial advertising reasons. And please, the blending of hydrogen into natural gas, I still need to understand what is the purpose of that, because hydrogen by volume does not have nearly the heat capacity or the heat content of methane. So you're actually diluting the methane when you put hydrogen. And it's not that you save CO2, you don't save anything. You actually lose a lot of the energy that you wanted to provide, let's say, for cooking or something else. So the blending into natural gas, it is kind of why? Why would you do it? Simply because you have the hydrogen. But, well, you have other things that you can use for heating, like electricity. So, yeah, I don't want to put too much into the thermodynamics, but here is you need 52 kilowatt hour per kilogram to make the hydrogen, and you can only recover 39 or less than 39. So this is more or less cast in stone, at least today. Thermodynamics hasn't changed in the past several hundred years, so I don't expect that it will change in the next 10 or 20. But there are other ways. If you want to store the hydrogen or you want to store energy, methanol is a much more efficient system because, well, you don't lose as much and you can recover a lot of the energy that you have put into making the methanol. You can recover when you burn again the methanol. I'm not recommending methanol as a fuel, but if necessary, for example, for aircraft or for shipping, you have that as an option. Ammonia is equally convenient, and it's also good. I won't put it in an aircraft just in case there's a leak, but in a shipping container, for container ships, maybe. Okay, so sorry about that. Here, I said thermodynamics is a challenge for hydrogen. Well, this is just one example, and it's not current. Actually, the situation is a little bit worse than what it shows here. But if you start with 100 megawatt hour of electricity, that's your energy, high energy, and you want to compress or liquefy the hydrogen, and then use it for producing electricity again, what it says is that you could get maybe 20% of the original energy, and the maximum would be about 45% of the original energy. That is, it doesn't matter whether this is renewable or it's gas driven or whatever. It's not free energy. The electricity is never free. You could use this in other applications that actually replace hydrogen, and you don't lose the 50%, 60%. If you lose that much, means you need to generate that much more renewable energy in order to sustain the hydrogen. And what sense does that make? Okay. And here's what I was saying is the exporting hydrogen is not as easy as exporting natural gas, for a simple reason. Natural gas can be liquefied at 1/5 of the energy needed for hydrogen. Hydrogen is very difficult to compress, it's even more difficult to liquefy, and you lose a lot of the energy just in the compression and liquefaction, and the boil off. Hydrogen is not as easy to contain as natural gas or liquid natural gas. It's a small molecule with a lot of mobility, and it takes any escape route and just escapes. So it hasn't been proven that you can export hydrogen long distances, like from South America to Europe or to Japan. And many people have that. And this is the final comment that I have about the issues with hydrogen. For electric vehicles, the train has left the station. So electric vehicles with battery-operated vehicles is not even a competition anymore, because on the left, bottom left, you have how many electric vehicles, battery-operated vehicles, are sold every year, and we're getting to 1 million and more. And I think this could be the US, or I don't think it's worldwide. I think it's the US. And on the right is how many fuel cell vehicles we have sold over the years. And it's not a mistake of the picture, it's zero, actually zero. So nothing has been sold. The other one has 1 million and more, and Tesla is a pretty good competitor, and there are others that will not just sit down and let hydrogen take off. So the competition has finished, and the battery electric vehicles seem to have won by far. Not only that, but for long distance heavy trucks, the batteries are getting better, and weight is not a problem for transportation. It's more the volume, and it can be accommodated. So there are batteries that can move big trucks, heavy trucks, and Tesla has shown it, but there are others that have also shown it. But what has not been shown really is that hydrogen can be used, because there are no hydrogen refueling stations. All right. My take-home messages is green hydrogen can replace the black-blue hydrogen that we are using now in both refining and chemicals for ammonia and others. Hydrogen for transportation faces thermodynamic, commercial, transportation, and cost challenges. So if you can solve all those in a few years, then maybe. Otherwise, a hype cycle that we see for hydrogen, in my opinion, is driven by government subsidies. The US has put billions of dollars into hydrogen. The European Union has done the same. And the question is, well, it's easy to work when you get free money from the government, but is this a business, or is just the hype? And hydrogen export is unproven. So far, it hasn't been done. So expecting that in 10 years, we will be exporting millions of tons of hydrogen across the world, yes. But who actually has confidence that those numbers will be realized? All right, thank you very much. I will let Laura give you a better, maybe more optimistic picture of hydrogen. In my case, it's not optimistic. I try to be realistic, and you can make your own mind about it. Thank you. Laura, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Sergio. Just a moment, I will try to share my screen with you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Ariel and the Chamber of Commerce, for inviting us to participate in this webinar. It's a great honor for me to be part of this webinar, and quite a challenge to come after such a wonderful and perfect presentation given by Sergio. I will try to do my best. Just and to begin with, to answer this question, of the webinar hype or trend is a challenge in itself. And I would rather say or rephrase this by saying, in my perception, it's both a hype and a trend. As Sergio pointed out, there are many barriers to deploy clean hydrogen projects, particularly at large scale, because the storage and the transportation of hydrogen is also very difficult and requires a huge amounts of energy. However, policymakers in the most important economies, sorry, I am trying to, however, policymakers in the most important economies are actively promoting the development of clean hydrogen, and also private players are announcing projects worldwide. Why is that so? Well, nobody has the right answer, at least I don't have the exact answer for this, but I can guess that policymakers need to comply with the Paris Agreement and their NDCs. And on the other hand, private players anticipate that their products will likely have to comply with stricter regulations regarding carbon footprint. So the hydrogen comes in this context of the energy transition and how to mitigate the climate change. But before we dive in these specific contents of my presentation, allow me to quickly review the key elements of the energy transition and how the hydrogen fits into this picture. The main pillars of the energy transition, Sergio already spoke about this, are mainly the improvements in energy efficiency, behavioral changes, and the integration of renewable energies and the direct electrification on all those sectors wherever, when this is possible. Additionally, comes the clean hydrogen and its derivatives, such as ammonia, methanol, and e-fuels, along with carbon capture technies. But this, the hydrogen and these CCUS techniques are added to the main actions that we can address to mitigate the climate change. As you can see in the graph at the right-hand side of the screen, the main proportion of the mitigation actions are these energy efficiency gains and direct electrification. So what are the key factors to deploy large-scale hydrogen projects? The main driver behind the development of the low-carbon hydrogen route is, as I said, to mitigate the climate change. These pathways, as already Sergio mentioned, are not cost competitive yet, and the technologies are not totally mature. Despite these challenges, there are near 1,500 announced projects globally. And it is observed that these projects, however, these projects announced at commercial scale are in their early stages. Only a small proportion, around 10%, has this final investment decision stage. The main importing regions, such as Europe, Japan, South Korea, are working on promotion schemes and certifications mechanisms to boost the deployment of low-carbon hydrogen and carbon capture, sequestration, and utilization techniques. Which brings me to my next slides. This graph intends to illustrate the key common attributes of the most promising projects within this database of more than 1,500 projects worldwide. Certainly, the business and regulatory environment has a prominent role. These are all very risky investments, and they need all these projects require significant amounts, enormous amounts of investments, and also they need patient investments to see returns. So the business environment has to be a friendly environment for these projects. Specifically in connection with the projects, we found a set of attributes, of factors that are of key importance, and we found that these attributes are relevant in order to, I wouldn't say assure, but try to attempt to succeed in these developments. One of the most important attributes is what we observed is that these projects are being led by associations or consortiums of big companies with know-how in the different segments of the value chain. The need also of the location and the existing infrastructure is such as ports, pipelines, transmission lines, is also a challenge for these projects. So the specific location and to find the right location for these projects is something of importance. In particular, if we think about the export-oriented projects, that I must say at this moment, there are no operative projects in operation dedicated to export hydrogen derivatives at large scale. The only projects that are operative nowadays are at a pilot scale. But usually they are located or they define locations near an existing port, mainly to leverage on existing infrastructure and on initial local off-takers in the industrial complexes that are usually nearby the ports. Also, the existence of an off-taker and the selection of the final carrier is, I would say, it is at the cornerstone of any project. And nowadays, to find an off-taker willing to pay the green premium for these clean products is a challenge. Focusing on this consortium approach that I was mentioning, I brought here an example in Australia where the sponsor change involved in moving this project forward is composed by many companies with know-how in the different segments, as I was mentioning, of the value chain. This project is located in Queensland, Australia. It is a large-scale renewable hydrogen production facility and also a liquefaction plant at the port of Gladstone. It aims to export liquid hydrogen to Japan and also to supply hydrogen and ammonia for the domestic market. It is anticipated that the project will be producing 200 tons per day by 2026 of hydrogen, scaling up to 800 tons per day by 2030. Presently, this project is at the FEED stage, and as a reference, these stages of 200 tons per day and 800 tons per day by 2030 roughly means about close to 500 megawatts of electrolyzers in the first stage and close to 2,000 megawatts of electrolyzers by 2030, which means that if the renewable energy comes from wind and a combination of wind and solar resources, that would roughly means almost the double of capacity of these renewable sources. Just to have an idea of some numbers and some figures. The proximity to ports, as I was also mentioning, is very important because it combines key logistics and infrastructure drivers and also local demand. all the projects that are announced are thought in different stages, starting with a small scale phase and scaling up gradually over time. So to have an initial off-taker, even if it is of a relatively small amount of volumes of product, is important to gain insights regarding all the challenges, not only technological challenges, but also commercial and economical challenges of these projects. Finally, the off-taker and the final carrier, as I was mentioning, this is central for any project. The most promising projects usually focus on three, I would say, rather two main final carriers, referring to export-oriented projects, which are ammonia and methanols, and following the route of methanol, also synthetic fuels. Another challenge that is that all these projects face is the absence of a market, of an international market to trade these products. At least these clean products. Of course, there is an international market for ammonia and methanol, but being produced by the conventional technologies with a carbon footprint much higher than these clean products. There are some initiatives to start moving or creating this market. One is coming from the German government, which is this H2 Global, to contribute to the development of a liquid market for hydrogen and its derivatives. And also there are many private agreements, bilateral agreements and MOUs amongst private companies, as I was mentioning, and usually the off-takers of these private agreements are industries currently using gray hydrogen. As Sergio was mentioning, one of the main end uses of hydrogen are the current uses, which is primarily as a feedstock for chemical industry, refining, and fertilizers. And finally, in the last part of my presentation, I would like to focus on the Southern Cone as a competitive region to become a net exporter of hydrogen derivatives. Some production cost estimates. I would start saying that the favorable positioning of the Southern Cone countries to become net exporters of hydrogen derivatives is primarily explained by their abundant natural resources and land availability. On the other hand, and this is also important, the contribution of hydrogen to reduce their own emissions is relatively minor when compared to other actions like direct electrification and energy efficiency enhancements. So there is a surplus that can be produced and potentially export to importing regions such as Europe and Japan and South Korea, as I was mentioning. These importing regions are the ones that are actively promoting the development of hydrogen projects worldwide. Why? Because they anticipate that their demand of low carbon hydrogen will not be, it won't be possible to cover with their own productions because they do not have enough resources and available land to do so. So this is, I would say, the main driver and why we observe in the region such an interest, not only in the region, there are not only in the Southern Cone and Latin America, also the other regions are being seen as potential exporters, such as Australia, Africa, Middle East, Canada. But focusing once again in the region, as a region, we share common features, as mentioned, mainly good quality and abundant resources, but each country is developing or has developed its own roadmap to deploy the hydrogen routes for exports, focusing on different technology pathways depending on their resources. In example, Chile clearly focused on green hydrogen production. Brazil, instead, it's a technological agnostic, and it has the rainbow of colors of low carbon clean hydrogen. Argentina, there is a project of a hydrogen law that specifically promotes both green, blue, and pink hydrogen coming from nuclear energy, in example. So there is a wide variety of options, but unfortunately, none of them is competitive nowadays if compared with conventional technologies, such as steam reforming without carbon sequestration. Going to our export potential as a region in the Southern Cone. This is an exercise that we carried out to estimate what could be the relative participation of our region in the potential international trade of hydrogen derivatives by 2030. We started with the global hydrogen demand estimates. Sergio mentioned some other figures. This 140 million tons per year is an estimation that comes from the Hydrogen Council. There are several other estimations from many international institutions, and there is a wide range of estimations there. But assuming that this is a fair number, at present in 2022, the demand for current uses of hydrogen is about 95 million tons per year. So assuming this is a figure, and assuming also that the expected, the proportion that international trend will represent would be approximately 10% of that, that leaves us with 40 million tons per year. That will be split approximately 12 million tons in Europe and 2 million tons in Japan and South Korea. And again, with the announced projects in this global database, we were able to estimate that approximately the Southern Cone could capture around 26% of this international trend, which means around 3 to 4 million tons of hydrogen per year. And that is a huge amount and very challenging to meet. Probably this figure will not be met, but the potential is there, and in connection with the resources, the region could be in a position to produce that. Some final considerations to wrap up. I will try to bring together the different pieces of the puzzle, or at least some of them. I like to envision the energy transition as a framework within which we must assemble this puzzle. And within, at the interior of this puzzle, we find different climate change mitigation actions, some more clearly defined than others. The need of continue adding renewables to our generation matrix, the gains in energy efficiency, etc. Although the low carbon hydrogen is not the primary measure to adopt, it certainly plays a role in the decarbonization pathways of the more developed economies, or the most important economies in the globe. That is, if they wish to achieve the trajectory set by the net zero emission scenario, and to meet the Paris Agreement and their own NDCs. Regions such as Latin America, Australia, the Middle East, and Africa position themselves as exporting regions to these importing countries, mainly Europe, Japan, and South Korea. Most of the projects are still in their early stages, and that is a fact. It is necessary to close the gap between the cost of producing low-carbon hydrogen and its derivatives and the willingness to pay for the green product. Those are the main challenges going forward, and this pathway is difficult, but in my opinion, not impossible if we put all the pieces of the puzzle together and assign to the hydrogen the role that it can play, particularly in the most developed economies. And with that, thank you very much. Open to any questions that you may have.
Hi, well, Laura, Sergio, thank you very much for the presentation. It was amazing the ton of information that you provide us and how you open our mind to the hydrogen world. Now let's go with the question and answers. I have several ones from the chat, so thank you everybody who posed question there. I will try to cover them in groups. So the first one is, the first two is from Pablo Codesal and Pablo Conrad. That is, any of those projects in South America are connected between them in the sense of, say, investors and technology providers?
Maybe I can answer that. The projects announced in Latin America are not connected between them. They are individual projects. What they have is, yes, a consortium or association of companies, but not necessarily the same companies. I don't know if that answers the question. There are different associations and between, in example, renewable generators and some off-takers or some technology providers, and not, of course, many of the companies that form that consortium are international companies.
The next one is, thank you, Laura. The next one is, what are the key or main projects in Texas and USA? If you have any to highlight.
Yep. There is none of the projects are actually operating. They're all before the final investment decision, but they are close to that. So they are in the design. There is one project that in Texas that uses energy from nuclear power plants, and coincidentally, it's driven or it's led by a company from Chile, and with partners with Siemens and others. And there's another project in Oklahoma that is a little bit behind that one, and it is also participants is Siemens. The one in Texas, I believe it's about 3 gigawatts power that it's going to use. So in the hundreds of thousands of tons per year of hydrogen, and the one in Oklahoma is smaller.
Following that question, is from Alberto Vázquez. Is storage and transportation of hydrogen as proposed by Girona a real option for hydrogen supply chain?
Well, is the real option? It has to be proven. They have tried to ship hydrogen container ships. I think they have a good idea, which is they use compressed hydrogen instead of liquid hydrogen, which will be much more expensive and much less efficient to transport. One thing is that both Japan and Korea, they don't have energy sources by themselves. They don't have fossil fuels, and therefore they will rely on somebody exporting electricity to them in the form of hydrogen or hydrogen products. So they are much more committed, Japan and Korea, to hydrogen imports than some of the other countries. So my answer is, I don't know. I haven't seen the project of Chiyoda work.
Thank you, Sergio. And there are two questions related to what the solution could be structured in the sense of, well, what would be the most likely source of electricity to fulfill the future demand of electrically green hydrogen? They say, and Carlos Frey say, renewable sources don't seem to be the ones, or will be.
Renewable sources to
Yeah,
feed
to generate
electrolyzer.
Yeah, exactly.
Electrolysis process, the electrolyzer. Yes, they seem to be the most suitable ones in terms of cost competitive, because they have reduced their costs dramatically in the last years. So a combination of wind, solar, depends, of course, on the quality of the resources. This is very site specific. There is not a general question, but yes, our perception is that they are suitable. And the variability of the new technologies of electrolyzers can cope with the variability of these renewables.
And from Alberto Vázquez, also regarding the technical side, can underground natural storage places like salt cavern become a good technical economical solution for hydrogen storage?
Yeah, at this point, they are theoretical solutions because they haven't been used at scale. So many things are possible. Many are less likely to progress. So hydrogen in caverns, yes, the idea being trying to save the energy of the container and keeping it safer, and perhaps it will work. There's a big difference between methane, like in salt caverns, you can store methane, and it's been done. Hydrogen is a much smaller molecule that has a lot of mobility and volatility, so it's more difficult to keep contained. And one comment, I have mistaken the Chiyoda storage or transportation method. They want to use liquid organic molecules or something like benzene converted to cyclohexene and then pack. And all I know of that is we tried it. We, meaning when I was at Shell, we tried it. And yes, it will work. The question is at what scale and at what price, and that was not really answered in my days.
Okay, and this is going to be the last one in order to honor our time. Is from Mariana Ardizone. Is for you, Sergio. Could you expand on green methanol production system? Maybe add additional color. What is the opportunity there or the technical challenges?
Yeah, actually, I will pass that to Laura because she's one of the big proponents of methanol, and I agree with that. But Laura?
Okay, I just to give some context, the storage and the transportation of hydrogen is at the bottleneck. So definitely we need to find carriers to reduce the cost and to facilitate this chain to transport and storage. And so what we observe, and the most suitable ones are ammonia, green methanol, and e-fuels, as I was mentioning. Why? Because they can be transported as liquids, and they already are transported international as liquids, and they drastically reduce the cost of storage and transportation. However, nowadays, and that depends on each country, but nowadays apparently the green ammonia would be more cost competitive than green methanol, in particularly because producing green ammonia is a mature technology, because the Haber-Bosch process has been known for many years, and it does not require any modifications, either if the hydrogen is green, brown, black, or whatever. Instead, the green methanol, the synthesis of green methanol has a less mature technology nowadays. But both are suitable, and we observe that there are many projects that and many countries that select either one or the other.
Well, we are closing the webinar. Again, Laura, Sergio, thank you very much. Also, all the attendees for joining us. I think that you, as I said, you opened our mind. You gave two different perspectives on the same matter that help us to understand, to have a full picture regarding the pros and cons, and from there, we can have our own takeaways. Well, thank you very much. We are going to have another webinar next Thursday regarding technology in oil and gas. We invite all of you to be part of the webinar and also to be part of the chamber. Well, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.